Good day, everyone. I am Alajane A. Ramos, and I am here to discuss the historical overview and types of realistic fiction. So, now let me have a short recap. What is realistic fiction? Realistic fiction is a genre of stories where the events and characters is fictional, could plausibly happen in the real world. It focuses on the relatable themes, characters, and settings that mirror real life experiences, situations, and problems. Before we delve into the discussions, let us all read our learning outcomes. At the end of the lesson, the students will be able to identify and describe different types of realistic fiction, analyze and evaluate common themes found in realistic fiction, and lastly, use critical thinking to compare realistic fictions with other literary genres. 1700s realistic fictions. This realistic fiction is the earliest realistic stories were didactic ones that were intended to teach morality and manners to young readers. In 700s, realistic fiction character were usually wooden, lifeless boys and girls whose lives were spent in good works. In England, there are two significant events affecting the future of children's literature occurred. First is the book Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe. It was published in 1719 for adults but became popular book among children. Mind you, it is the first type realistic fiction. The other one is the John U. Barry book. It was published in 1744. This book is intended to entertain and as well as to educate. So there are a lot of imitators of the book Robinson Crusoe, such as the Swiss Family Robinson, the Treasure Island, the Kidnap, Tom Sawyer, and Huckleberry Finn. The next era is 1800s. In these centuries, realistic family stories also came on the scene during the 1800s. The realistic book in the 18th century is The Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. It was a realistic book came seen in the 1800s and it was published in 1868. So this story remained favorite until in the 20th century. The other book that features in the 1800 centuries is the Anne of Green Gables. So it is also a realistic book written by Montgomery. This is a precursor of adjustment and addresses the special needs of children with problems. So this realistic fictions is an early memorable books that often depicted the life of a girl, and many women can relate with it since it is a realistic fictions and based on the contemporary issues. The other one books in 1800s is The Secret Garden. So it is one of the realistic fictions book written by Frances. So this book is an indicator to address children with special needs, the same with the Anne Gables. So Anne of Green Gables and this book were orphans. This book can be considered a precursor. What do you mean by precursor? It is a person or thing that comes before another of the same kind. Like the Anne of the Gables and this Secret Garden has the same qualities, but also they have distinctive qualities in the books. So of adjustments, stories that addresses the special needs of children with problems. So these are the example of realistic fictions in the 1800s, the Hans Binker or the Silver Skates, and the Heidi. And the last book in the 1800s is The Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. So this book was published on 1877. Anna's Will was a plea for human treatment of animals. So this book is sentimental places and completely personified. So again and again, this book is featuring animals that compasses as how humans treat animals, and it can be depicted in the real world scenarios. And we are done with the 1800s, and now we are in the 1900 centuries. So these centuries is more on regional stories, and the stories about children of minority groups began to appear with more frequency in 1940s. The first book in the 90s centuries is The Strawberry Girl by Louise Lenski. So this book was published in 1945. The author featured rural Florida. So this book, it was one of the first regional stories in the 1900s. So this book was in the 1960s and 1970s that books written by minorities began to achieve a national recognition, not just this book but the other following books that depicted regional stories. These are the examples of regional stories: the Virginia Hamilton and the Stevie. And the last century for the realistic books is the New Era. So New Era in realistic fictions for children was ushered in with the publications of the Harriet the Spy. So the New Era began with that book. Harriet the Spy, it was published on 1945. So this is story of unhappy and unpleasant girl often depicted Harriet's parents, family, classmates, or anything as ideal for a sympathetic human being. Milestone in the development of realistic fictions. So here are the author and accompanying with the books. So if you want to read the books, you could only search the title of the books and read the whole story. And now we are done with the historical overview of the realistic fictions. And now we are tackling about types of realistic fictions. So listen carefully. First types of realistic fictions is families. First is nuclear family. Nuclear family refers to children and their relationship with parents and siblings. Are in natural subjects for children books. So this narrative focuses on the parent-child relationships and sibling interactions, which are universal themes in children's literature. By depicting everyday moments like shared meals, arguments, or celebrations, they help young readers see their own experiences reflected. And the other one is childhood. For most children is spent in close contact with family members. Close contact with the family members, it means since children spend most of their time with family, these stories highlight how family shapes identity, teaches values, and navigate challenges. So they reassure readers that family bonds, even when imperfect, it also provides stability and love. So these are the examples of children's literature or realistic fictions books, the Quigleys and the Pippins and their problems. The other one is extended families. Extended families can be also found in the children's books. Aunts, uncles, grandparents, and cousins. So these stories includes relatives like grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins, showing how broader family networks provide support, wisdom, and companionship. They teach children about diverse family structures and the value of shared bonds beyond the nuclear family. So these are the example of nuclear family, the Hello Goodbye window, and the same stuff as stars. The other definitions of the families as the types of realistic fiction: first is alternative family of today's world, also depicted in family stories. So, alternative families structure in modern stories often reflect diverse families like same-sex, single-parent, or blended, to emphasize that love and support, not traditional norms that defined family bonds. The other one is separation, divorce, single parents, families, adopted families, foster families, and reconstructed families of step-parents and step-children. So, these non-traditional families, literature highlights families shaped by divorce, adoption, fostering, or remarriage, focusing on resilience and care as the foundations of family life beyond biological ties. And now we are done with the families, and now we are moving on to the peers, these types of realistic fiction. So many realistic stories show children struggling for acceptance by peers in a group situation. Peer acceptance struggles. Realistic fictions often portrays children navigating group dynamics, highlighting their struggles to gain peer acceptance and fit in socially. The other one is school settings are common in these stories. So, the setting, the plot where the stories will be held. So, school settings, this story frequently use school environments to explore social challenges, friendships, and identity. Formations in relatable and everyday context. The example of a peer as portraying realistic fiction is Just Grace. The other definitions of how peers portray in realistic fiction is developing a close friendship is another focus of stories about peer relationship. So developing close friendship, stories emphasizes forming deep bonds, showing how friendships provide support, trust, and emotional growth. The other one is friends may be of the same sex or the opposite sex, or the same age or very different age. Diverse friendship. Friendship spans same, opposite sexes and ages, reflecting varied dynamics that teach empathy and acceptance. The example of peer books as portraying realistic fiction is Fell Out of the Tree, Ansi Dust Time, and Bird Lake Moon. And now we are done to peers. Now we will moving on to physical, emotional, mental, and behavioral challenges that portray in the realistic fiction. So some children have disabilities, others have a family member or a friend with disability. Disabilities in a realistic fiction stories include characters with disability. It could be physically, emotionally, mentally, and behaviorally, or those close to someone with a disability. The other definition is it may be physically, emotionally, behaviorally, and behavioral matter. So portrayal of disabilities, this narrative explored the challenges and strengths, promoting empathy, accurate understanding by avoiding stereotyping. And that would be all for those behavioral changes. Now we will be moving on to the community, as how community portrays in a realistic fiction. Community is part of growing up, involves discovery of one's membership in a community, a group extending beyond the family. So, a community membership discovery, growing up involves children realizing they are part of a larger community with a beyond their family. So this sense of belongings helps shape their identity, builds confidence, and provides emotional support as they learn to connect, contribute, and find their place among others in society. And this book is the example of a community portraying in a realistic fiction. So, how does community portray in realistic fiction? Community extends beyond country to communities around the world. So, global community awareness is the word portraying that definition. Growing up now includes recognizing membership in worldwide communities beyond local or national boundaries. Other one is with increasing interdependence among countries, young people will be more likely to be connected to international community. And what do we mean by that? International interdependence stories reflect how global connections shape young people's identities, preparing them for a future of cross-cultural collaboration and shared responsibility. And these are also example of community featuring in a realistic fictions. The Shabano, The Daughter of the Winds, and The Colibri, and written by Anne Cameron. And now we are done with the community, and now we are tackling about animals. How does animals portray in a realistic fiction? Animals portrayed in realistic fiction. In realistic animal stories, the animal protagonists behave like an animal and is not personified. Animal protagonists in realistic fictions stories feature animals behaving naturally, focusing on their instincts, survival, and interactions with their environment. So, usually, a child is also a protagonist in these stories. Child co-protagonist. These narratives often include a child protagonist who observes, bonds with, or learns from the animal, highlighting mutual growth and respect for the nature. So this book is examples of animals featured in a realistic stories. And now we are done with the animals, and now we will tackle about sports. How does sports feature in realistic stories? So, sports often presented in a story in which a child protagonist struggles to become accepted as a member of a team and thus eventually succeed through determinations and hard work. So, sports stories centered on a child's protagonist struggle to gain team acceptance, culminating in success through determination and hard work, highlighting resilience and personal growth. So, these are the examples of sports featuring in realistic stories: The Boy Who Saved Baseball and Soccer Chick Rules. And now we are done with the sports. We are going to tackle about mysteries. So, mysteries in realistic fictions, it is very popular with boys and girls, range from simply who units to complex character stories. So, mysteries in children's literature, mysteries ranging from simple puzzles to complex character-driven plots, captivate young readers with suspense and problem solving, appealing to both boys and girls. Mysteries have won more states' Children's Choices Awards than any type of story, a fact that it is the favorite type of stories among children's literature. So, popularity of mysteries have won more state Children's Choice Awards than any genre. It is right, reflecting their universal appeal and ability to engage readers through curiosity and intellectual challenge. So these are the examples of books featuring the mysteries and realistic stories: The Blue Ballad and Evil Genius. So we are done about the types of realistic fictions. Now I will showing you the notable authors of realistic fictions. These are the notable authors for the realistic fictions. If you want to read more and you are more curious what does realistic fictions truly are, what realistic feature truly embody, you can search this persona and read their books. And now we're down to go. Now we will tackle about the moral choices. Moral choices. It is a character in realistic fictions novels face moment of crisis, situations of great difficulties, or events that may change someone's life. So crisis in realistic fiction, characters face life-altering crisis, forcing difficult choices that reveal their values and drive growth. Provide the foundation programs of character education. So, character education program teach core values such as respect, responsibility, and fairness to build ethical decision-making and empathy. These are the example of moral choices, fictional, realistic fiction stories. Read Kayak. And we are done with the moral choices. Now we will tackle about romance and sexuality. So, romance stories are popular with the pre-teens and teens, especially girl. So, romance stories for pre-teens and teens, romance stories particularly popular with girls, explore first crushes, emotional bonds, and self-discovery during adolescence. And then, some stories of realistic fiction feature girl-boy relationship. So, girl-boy relationships in realistic fiction, these narratives depict authentic dynamics, focusing on communication, friendship, and the complexities of young love. And as we all know, in 1900s, more stories of teenage pregnancy and teenage parenting appeared. So, teen pregnancy parenting in 1990s fiction, stories from this era began addressing teenage pregnancy and parenting, highlighting challenges like responsibility, stigma, and societal pressures. And these are the examples of realistic stories under the romance and sexuality. As I can say, we are now tackling in coming of age. So, these changes are reflected in books for adolescent and are referred to as coming of age stories. So, coming of age stories, books for adolescents reflecting life changes such as identity formation and emotional growth are termed of coming of age stories. So, books that deals with trials and tribulations encountered during the growth is called rite of passage books. Rite of passage books. This narrative focus on trials and tribulations again during maturation, emphasizing challenges that mark the transitions from childhood to adulthood. So these are the example of coming of age books, the Olive's Oceans, and the Shift. And it's somehow we are done with the coming of age, and now we will be discussing the adventure and survival. So, facing physical danger and external force also contributes to the maturing process. So, physical danger as a catalyst, facing external threats like natural disaster, conflicts. So, forces young protagonists to confront fear, to face their fear, accelerating maturity through survival-driven choices. So the other one is the young protagonist must rely on will and ingenuity to survive a life-threatening situation. Survival through willpower. The protagonist relies on courage, quick thinking, and resilience to overcome life-threatening challenges, providing self-reliance and inner strength. And these are the examples of survival fictional stories, The Maze, and The Wilderness. And that would be all. In conclusion, realistic fictions uses authentic characters and settings to explore universal human experiences, fostering empathy through timeless themes like identity and resilience across its diverse forms. In other words, realistic fictions uses authentic characters, true-to-life settings, and universal themes like identity and resilience to explore diverse human experiences, fostering empathy and bridging varied perspectives, and struggling through relatable and immersive storytelling. And that would be all. Thank you for listening. So please answer my assessment in the following